So, you're an aspiring artist and you're contemplating whether you should go to art school or if you should just teach yourself. Whether you're a kid in high school contemplating your career path or an adult who might want to earn some extra money on the side, art is a shockingly viable business if you know your stuff. And one of the major things that plays a key role in the art industry is, of course, art school. Hey you guys, gals, and non-binary pals, Spirit here. So, judging by the title, you're probably wondering whether art school is even worth it, especially considering how classes have gone online in the current year. How does this work? Is it worth going to an online course when I could just as easily teach myself? Well, personally speaking, as someone who's been in art school and has taken classes during the pandemic, I do want to share a little info that will hopefully help you guys out. Now, I do want to say that this is from my experience as a student in art school, and there will be a little bit of bias here. However, as someone who started off as self-taught, I know both sides of the coin, and I've also made sure to ask for some of my peers' opinions, both from inside and outside of a scholastic environment. But really quickly before I begin, if you're looking to excel in art, whether it be just getting started or expanding your business, be sure to check me out on Patreon. I have a private Patreon section on my Discord server where I give frequent advice on how to improve art, I offer private tutoring sessions, and even if learning how to draw isn't your thing, you can still get stuff like art and discounts on commissions for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the description below if you'd like to support my channel and help me continue making content. So, I happen to be a second-year student at Savannah College of Art and Design, one of the more higher-ranking art schools here in the US as well as around the world. Over the past year, I've had a lot of time to really think on the topic of art school, as well as gather some information that might be important to keep in mind when considering art as a career. I do want to make it clear in this video that regardless of whether you go to art school or not, it doesn't make you any less of an artist. I've seen folks who have never gone to an art class in their life create some amazing stuff, while other folks who have gone to art school can sometimes just end up making mediocre content at best. Another point I want to make is that art school does not automatically make you a good artist, nor does it make you better than other artists just because you have a degree. I've noticed that a lot of folks tend to perceive art students as snooty or sometimes holier than thou, and I just want to make it clear that we aren't better just because we're earning a degree. So, with that out of the way, is art school worth it? I think when considering art school, or any creative field in general, you have to ask yourself a few very important questions. What field are you going into? What are you hoping to gain from art school? Can you afford to attend art school? Is art your desired career or just a hobby? Why do you want to attend art school? The first question I feel is incredibly important, but not often talked about. The common misconception of art school is that students go there specifically to learn stuff like illustration or how to paint. Things that are generally not seen as very pragmatic career choices. However, something I do want to bring folks' attention to is that art school can in fact bear a wide variety of careers and majors. For example, you can go into visual development, 3D design, video game development, advertising and marketing, film, music production, architecture, and even business. These are all just majors that I can list off the top of my head, not counting the more commonly known ones such as motion design or animation. And yes, those are two different things. The main point I want to make here is that art school isn't solely tied to the concept of being an illustrator or a starving artist. In general, most students that I know tend to become rather well-rounded and actually tend to be far more of a jack of all trades rather than a single focus. Then again, I may be speaking from my own experiences, but even still the moniker of art school I feel is far more of a general term for something that revolves around a career that involves some form of creation or understanding of the creative industry. It's sometimes hard to notice, but if you look around, a majority of things such as logos, billboards, commercials, and even graphics for shows are generally made by someone who is professionally trained. Even if you just go to the store, most things on like a chip bag are something that an artist had to make. The second question is kind of the, what can art school do for you? What are you looking to get out of it? For most artists, a sense of community as well as mutual growth can be wondrous as a springboard for those just starting out. From personal experiences, the biggest thing I appreciate from art school so far is the aspect of community, but also access to resources which may either be too expensive to own, or otherwise just difficult to work with from home. Another major factor which a lot of people often miss out on is just group collaboration, a shared workspace. In the year of 2020, when social distancing is the norm, a lot of artists are unfortunately back to working in solitude, either in their rooms or studios if they're lucky enough to have the space. I myself spend most of my time in the same 8x10 room with my bed at one side and my desk at the other, and admittedly it's not the most fostering for creativity. As such, one of the major benefits I do want to point out from my experience is of course the environment. Having a good working environment can make or break an artist's creativity and general work efficiency. So ensuring that your art school works for you and that you have a place that nurtures your creativity is something that I would say is paramount. As someone who's been working from home since this March, I personally miss having the breathing room of the studios, the large tablets, and the labs where I could feasibly render my projects in a much faster time than my little laptop. Especially if you intend to work with larger or messy media, having a designated space in general is pretty good. And I think the benefits of going to classes or going elsewhere to do the work is that you have a healthy disconnect and are less prone to burnout. The third question is rather obvious. I personally can't speak of the quality of other art schools in the country because I simply don't have experience with them. But in general, art schools are usually privatized and tend to cost more money to attend. Putting aside tuition and out-of-state fees, you also need to account for supplies every semester. On average, I've found I spend upwards of $200 on supplies per semester, unless I have leftovers from the last one that are applicable. There are also instances of classes where you'll be required to buy something, but may not need it or may use it sparingly at most. I personally have had 2 big pads of Bristol board and newsprint that have been used about halfway through before I moved on to my digital classes, and I can't tell you how much charcoal I burnt through in my first year. Now I do want to make something clear. Art supplies are going to be very expensive no matter what, and most of the time, unless it's something very specific, art professors generally won't be too picky on how upper end your supplies are. I never had to buy hella expensive oil paints, and in fact I think the most expensive thing I've had to buy was a big clipboard which is paid back tenfold in its usefulness. That $100 or so covers 3 classes and is usually lasted me at least 1 to 2 quarters, and the times I do run out I can usually just borrow some material from a friend. Hell, if you're really intuitive, you can actually make use of supplies that you buy for other stuff. However, I do want to stress that as much as I talk up art school, it is still very pricey. Upper crust schools like Ringling and SCAD tend to run about $40K to $60K a year when it comes to tuition and housing, and while you are paying for industry professionals who know their craft, I do need to emphasize that the value of that cost really depends on how much effort you put into it, as well as how you value the information you're receiving. You're paying to receive information as well as feedback from the professors on how to improve. You won't just get good by being there, rather it's a game of receiving the information, working on something, and then taking note for future improvements after receiving feedback from the professor and the class. Having peer reviews is also something to take into account. Learning how to take criticism and feedback in person is crucial, because if you intend to go into the creative industry, then you will receive feedback. You will receive criticism that is just a bit too harsh, and you will have bosses and clients that tell you to scrap the whole thing and do it again, even after a long 30-hour work week of hard work and frustrating hours staring at a screen that gives you a headache. I think the biggest thing that art school teaches you is, outside of collaboration and fundamentals, is patience. An ability to take a punch in the gut, separate yourself from your work, and see possibilities for the future. Fourth part is more or less a personal question. What are you seeking in your creative endeavors? Are you just looking to get better, or do you want to make it a career? A major part of an art career is networking, making connections and building an audience or means of earning your income. Art as a career that, while you may very well enjoy it, is something that you're going to be doing every day, for several hours a day, with countless challenges and struggles. It really is just like other jobs, with dumb situations or redos, creative blocks, and of course, time crunches. And it bears every single drawback of having to communicate with clients too. Just like any college, art school is akin to a microcosm, a test to see if you can handle the real deal. From my experience, the first year is generally the one where you're slapped with a heavy workload to see if you can take it. You are drawing at a much higher frequency than normal, you're creating a lot more than normal, and you're making stuff that you wouldn't often make or is just outside of your comfort zone. Being pushed outside of your comfort zone is crucial for improvement. However, some folks crack under the pressure, and it can be a little too much and eventually cause them to crumble. The thing to keep in mind is that if you do decide to take the route of professional training, you should be prepared to take on a lot of rigorous work. You will be tested and go through ups and downs when it comes to your emotions and how you handle stress. And hey, if you find out it's not for you, that's okay. It's okay to not go professional, especially if it's taking away from something you enjoy. I know a lot of people glamour up being an artist as something that's great. You spend all your time in your studio, drawing whatever you want, making stuff all day with little stress, but it really isn't the case here. There is also the fact that not everyone makes it in the art field. Period. It takes a combination of discipline, pushing yourself to the limits, as well as luck to determine whether you're going to make it. And honestly, don't blame yourself if you don't get that far. It's fine if you don't make it. If art is something that you are looking to improve on purely for the sake of enjoyment or self-expression, then you don't need to go to art school. You don't need to spend $40,000 a year pulling all-nighters on projects, dealing with stressful or outlandish concepts, spending hundreds on supplies for stuff you'll never use, or acquiring skills for something that isn't meant to be taken this far. Ask yourself how seriously you want to take art. This ties into the last question, being why you want to attend art school in the first place. Are you attending it because you just want to be a better artist? Are you going because you want to break into the industry? Or are you focused more on short-term goals, such as a single project, or wanting to see your visions to completion? A lot of people call themselves idea guys, wherein they have so many great ideas but never really execute on them, or go to school for the wrong reasons. I started out as this, someone who wanted to go to art school purely on the basis of learning the skills so I can make my own stuff, and while it is a valiant effort, you will burn out fast, especially if those projects end up tanking in the end. Personally speaking, the best reason to go to art school is a combination of a passion for the work as well as trying to break into the industry. The main thing that art school will provide you is connections and resources in order to go further than you can on your own. So, keeping all this in mind, I think it's time for final statements. My general point is art school is worth it if you're either unable or unwilling to seek out improvement on your own time, or you don't have the resources. I would compare it to drawing digital art. While you may have proficiency in using these tools specifically, relying on them solely can result in developing some bad habits, which may hinder your progress or otherwise cause issues with your art. It's akin to the concept of it's just my art style, where an artist will learn to draw in a specific style or abide by their own rules before understanding the underlying concepts that can actually make a style they try to emulate work. Operating on what you know means you can only draw what you know, and from my experience, most self-taught artists generally don't put much time into expanding their horizons, or don't know what resources they need to look into to proceed. Especially those looking to do industry work may be unfamiliar with what all the position may entail, or what employers are looking for either due to the lack of experience or lacking of understanding of what's sought after in the industry. I can't tell you if art school is going to be worth it for you personally, because that's honestly up for you to decide. Personally, I enjoy it, but I want you to keep in mind everything I mentioned, and when it comes to making this decision, consider every detail. Do your research, reflect, and take notes. Then decide if it's something you want to pursue. Oh boy, that one was a bit long-winded. Hopefully that helps, and hey, tell me your experiences in the comments below. Do you think art school is worth it, or is it better to stay self-taught? Are you a self-taught artist, or are you in art school? I'm looking forward to hearing from you. If you guys like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video around. It supports me and is practically free. Also be sure to check out my Twitter where I post my art, as well as my Discord server where we can hang out and talk. Lastly, if you'd like to help support me so I can continue producing free content, be sure to check out my Patreon and my Teespring store. This month's featured Patreons are Mr. Eaton, Cosmo, and Gwentree Thundersnow. If you'd like to join them up on screen as well as get other perks, link is in the description below. That's all for now, I'm Spirit, and I'll see you next time.